Cheers and salutations. Welcome to Americans Learn. My name is Kit. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Be sure to hit that ring bell notification. That way all of you are made aware when we upload new content upon our, you guessed it, YouTube channel. And today, we're returning back to Sabaton history, Aces in Exile, Part 1, non-British RAF pilots. Now, this is fantastic. This is going to be a Part 1 and Part 2. So, hey, pay attention to Part 1, and you know what the rules are. When we get our learn on, then we get our music video on, as we should. So first and foremost, as always, folks, you guys and gals, you hip cool cats, were the ones that told us about Sabaton history. So please follow Sabaton history on all their social media links. The original link to this video is in the description box below. It's the right thing to do, and it's something that we here at Americans Learn support and encourage all of you to do as well. So without further ado, since I'm in charge of the ones and twos, let's play this video in a 3, a 2, and an uno.
The Battle of Britain was fought in the skies above Britain by the British and the Germans.
And a lot of other nations.
Yeah, that's what this is about today. The spring of 1940 had seen the German Wehrmacht sweep through the Low Countries in France with unexpected speed and ferocity. No one in Britain had expected France to fall so quickly, and the British forces had barely escaped back over the Channel in time. By the end of June 1940...
Don't worry, folks. We're going to have another round at it in 1944. We'll be striking back hard.
It seemed to many that Great Britain stood alone, and if they chose to keep fighting, they might face invasion or starvation. But Britain also found itself unexpected allies. As much of Europe came under Nazi rule, not only did the now exiled governments of 6 European nations seek refuge in Britain, but they also brought thousands of their soldiers, pilots, and air crews. The defense of Britain relied on its air force. Should the Royal Air Force be defeated, then even the powerful Royal Navy would sooner or later succumb to German air superiority. The British had, in fact, lost quite a few pilots during the evacuation from the continent, and the coming battle for Britain would be fought on a knife's edge. So it seemed like a perfect match, you know? A host of experienced pilots and crewmen, far away from their country but with the desire to fight, and a country in dire need of reinforcements. The British and the foreign governments came to the same conclusion. However, it's one thing to have a pool of new pilots and another thing to unite them into an actual fighting force.
Because everyone's going to be speaking different languages. You got Polish, you got French, you got all the other countries. You got like what? So many nations right now under the occupation of the Third Reich. Not everyone's going to be speaking the same words, you know.
Common enemy and the ability to fly a plane was simply not enough. First, the British government had to create many political necessities from scratch to legitimate the presence of foreign forces on their soil. The first step was to fall back on the Visiting Forces Act from 1933. This was initially designed to allow soldiers from the Commonwealth, like the Canadians, to station military forces in Britain without transferring their jurisdiction to the British authorities.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because obviously the Commonwealth was made up of Great Britain and all of its holdings of the empire at the time, including Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and everywhere else across the world where the British Empire was at.
Expanding on this law, they created the Allied Forces Act, which now legitimized the exiled governments as well to keep their own forces stationed in Great Britain, right? This was important because the Polish, Czechoslovakian, and French governments did not want their forces to simply be assimilated into the Royal Air Force. It also started a bureaucratic nightmare. The Commonwealth soldiers did have it easier. The Canadian pilots of Squadron 401 had arrived June 21, 1940, a month before the British skies were darkened by streams of German bombers. Squadron 401 had been originally established as the first fighter squadron of the Royal Canadian Air Force in 1937. Although they had their most experience flying outdated Armstrong Whitworth Siskins, they had just recently been upgraded with more modern Hawker Hurricanes.
Good. Thank goodness, because whatever that was, that ain't gonna do anything to Luftwaffe, okay? When Luftwaffe comes your way, you gotta duck, dodge, dip, dive, duck, and shoot them out of the sky.
Now, the Hurricanes were slower and not as agile as, say, the Bf-109 or the Spitfire, but they were easier aircraft to master. Squadron 401's main task was to engage and shoot down German bombers, mainly Dornier 17s and Heinkel 111s, and leave the dogfights with the Messerschmitts to the faster Spitfire squadrons, right?
Yeah, Spitfire.
Although the 401 was mostly spared the political bickering, they still had to train and to upgrade their planes by British standards. Their baptism of fire came in late August as they met the full force of a German bomber attack head-on. The Canadians pounced on the bombers, but dogfights with the German destroyers were tearing holes in their formations. The 401, known as the Rams, repeatedly fought to exhaustion. Every aerial victory was hard fought, and the Canadians were willing to make great sacrifices to protect Britain's skies.
Get him!
The fighting did not stop the political scheming behind the scenes, of course. For the Royal Air Force, it was clear that any pilot serving in a British uniform, irrespective of his nationality, would have to serve under the same military code as the British pilots. The exiled governments, however, wanted to be recognized as actual allies, not just associated powers or foreign volunteers. The independence of their pilots gave them not only political prestige, but legitimacy in representing their occupied home country. If any pilots were sick of those political wheelings and dealings, though, it had to be the Czechs and the Slovaks. Since the Munich Agreement and the consequent invasion of Czechoslovakia in 1939, those men had been forced to flee their country and seek refuge in neighboring countries until they made it to France. But the French did not exactly welcome them with open arms. Instead, they forced many of the Czech and Slovak soldiers to either join the Foreign Legion in Africa or be sent back over the border. Only a few had the chance to fly some outdated aircraft during the Battle of France, before more than 4,000 of them made it over to Britain. There, under the guidance of President Eduard Benes and Foreign Minister Jan Masaryk, they had their own fighter and their own bomber squadrons established as part of the Royal Air Force Volunteer Reserve by mid-July 1940. But still, many of them felt that they were again being held back. Lots of British officials initially had little faith in them and treated them as an amateurish, low-ranking force. They trained and reorganized until the middle of August, while the skies of southern England were fought over ever more viciously. When Squadron 310 was given a chance, it quickly proved its value. They began fighting their own private war against the Germans, actually, often going so far as to pursue them back over the Channel.
Yeah.
Their determination.
Guys. Love your enthusiasm. Just gotta come on back.
Quickly
They'll be back again.
earned them a reputation as reckless daredevils, but every time they tore into the German formations, they produced results. Soon, the Czechoslovakian insignia was proudly painted on the wings of their planes, and their red lion graced the fuselage. Respect was hard-earned. Every German plane shot down, every medal won, and every daring exploit of their fighter and bomber crews was documented and featured in their own newspapers and newsreels. This was to bolster morale and to show their critics the value of their commitment. By the end of the battle, no one doubted them any longer. Their 37 confirmed kills and many more damaged enemy bombers earned them the recognition of the top brass.
As they should.
Like the Czechs and Slovaks, the Polish refugees had been treated with suspicion and discrimination by officials. Polish General Zajec had gone personally to Winston Churchill to tell him that the Polish fighter pilots were eager to give the Germans some payback and that their maintenance personnel were already familiar with British-made airplane engines. But the RAF judged the Polish temperament as too individualistic and problematic.
Hey. Hey. I like to take pride in my Sicilian roots, but my grandfather is Polish. All right? And you lay off Poland here for a second here, okay? Come on, Great Britain. They're ready to get in that fight. They got that dog in them.
Though most of the exiled pilots from Poland were experienced veterans of the 111th and 112th Escadra of the Polish Air Force, and many had seen action in the skies over Warsaw in September 1939. Serving for the British, Fighter Squadron 303 was less of a new formation and more of a symbolic continuation of their own Air Force. Nonetheless, the men of 303 had to be introduced to new technical details like modern throttles and speed propellers, and even retractable undercarriages. The PZL P-11s they had flown before were actually closer to a World War I plane than the modern Messerschmitts they now had to face in combat. They adapted quickly. When a German 110 was shot down during a simple training flight, the British were convinced that 303 was ready. Throughout September and October 1940, the squadron repeatedly clashed with the Luftwaffe, contesting British airspace with every sortie, and the Germans had to pay a high price for every Polish fighter they shot down.
That's right, Germania. Flew over the wrong skies this time.
During the German attack on the London docks, the 303 alone claimed 12 Dorniers in one day. Flying for the 303, the Czech Josef František, nicknamed the Lone Wolf, became the highest-scoring Allied pilot of the Battle of Britain, with 17 confirmed kills. The squadron continued to aggressively attack the Germans in dogfights over London, making 303 one of the highest-scoring squadrons of 1940. By late October, the danger of imminent invasion seemed to be over, at least for the time being, as the British Air Force finally gained the upper hand. And many British officials agreed that had it not been for the foreign pilots, the outcome might not have been the same. Indeed, 1/5 of the Royal Air Force did not come from the British Isles. Next to the Poles, Czechs, Slovaks, and Canadians fought Free Frenchmen, New Zealanders, Norwegians, and volunteers from the United States. But although the Battle of Britain was won, the war was far from over. So the pilots in exile would continue fighting with the RAF until they were relieved of their duties at the end of the war. Over the war years, the British would also put quite a large amount of money and resources into cultural and educational programs for the foreigners. Since they did not just fight the same enemy, fly the same planes, and eat the same British cuisine, but also lived in British communities, they were to be integrated as much as possible. Learning the English language was the first and most important step. And
that's right, everybody get to learn on. Here at Americans Learn, we encourage everyone to understand each other's cultures and languages and cuisines, music, and everything else. Because listen, folks, we live in a big old wide world. It's quite an adventurous one. And I say, go on your journey and adventure as soon as you can, when you can. But just be careful when flying, because airplanes are falling apart. Dare I say it, I think I would feel safer in a World War I airplane right now than in our current crop of planes. Come on, when a Boeing door blows off, the safety door, the emergency, 16,000 feet in the air, you should be a little like, whoa. And not to mention, it's been kind of ongoing. I must speak for myself. Has me a little nervous if I ever choose to fly again. You know, because I want to go back to Japan. I don't want to be swimming in the ocean with the giant squids, okay? Yes, that's the one animal that frightens me. Giant squid. I just don't want to be dragged to the murky depths.
And once they understood more than just military orders, the foreign pilots were no longer confined to their own groups. These educational programs did a lot to overcome initial resentment and kept morale high so that the men felt comfortable serving and living in Britain. Winning the war was only possible if they worked together, despite their political and cultural differences. With time, they grew fond of each other as respect was earned and sacrifices were made. Everybody lost friends, and everybody had to get on with the fight until the job was done. Today, many different veteran associations still remember the Battle of Britain as the defining moment of the Allied war effort. British monuments still speak of their deeds and emphasize how much they had to thank their own and the foreign pilots alike who came to their aid in their darkest hour. For them, never was so much owed by so many to so few.
Absolutely.
Before we talk a little bit about the song, there is a game about Aces in Exile, yes?
Yeah, and
Tell us about that a little bit.
Coming here soon, so we can play it in another episode.
But you don't have one with you?
No.
Okay, but we'll play it in another episode.
It's a couple of years ago, but we were there at the premiere of it, and it was kind of coinciding with the idea of our song, and then this game.
It's a board game.
Board game.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Is it for 2 players, 4 players? You know, different amount? Or?
You, 2
Oh.
people.
So it's really one side against the other.
Yes.
About the song, you know, it's interesting, the Aces in Exile. Now, we've obviously talked about the Poles and the Czechs and the Canadians and so forth many times in the regular World War II episodes on my World War II in Real Time channel. And they often get overlooked and forgotten, you know?
Yeah, that's why a lot of people in these countries really wanted us to write a song about it, because they are like, oh, Britain takes all the credit for the Battle of Britain.
Yeah.
We also have, of course, in the song, which deals mainly with Czech, which is Far From the Fame. But this specific song itself was written way earlier than that.
Yeah.
It's from the 2010 album Coat of Arms. It was one of the last songs written for the album, and I remember how long we were working with it because it has so many different elements in it. It was a very inspiring song to work with musically. Actually, a lot of the parts that were written for that song as well were so damn good, so they were used in other songs later.
Okay.
I guess if you ask anybody of the band members, like, what's your favorite song from Coat of Arms? It's Ace in Exile
Ace
for
in
most
Exile.
people. And when Tommy joined the band, he was like, can we play Ace in Exile,
Okay,
please,
that's-
please, please, please? It's his favorite album, and it's his favorite song. I think the song would fit into any Sabaton set list at any time. It sticks out. It's something very uplifting, very cheerful, very heroic.
Let me ask you guys this, to our viewing audience. Don't mean to pause, but hold on. Do you have a relative? And this goes to our international audience. Worldwide, from the USA to Canada, Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand, Czechoslovakia, Poland, France. Do you have a relative who fought in the Battle of Great Britain? Do you have a relative or, you know, their story? Let them live again. Tell us their story. How have they made an impact? What were their feats? Tell us their story. If you have a relative who fought in the Battle of Great Britain, who was a pilot in the RAF. You know, and yes, this includes everybody, everyone who served in the RAF in the Battle of Great Britain. Please type in the comment section below. Let's hear their stories again. Let them fly again in the air. Let us be regaled with their stories of triumph, victory, and sacrifice.
Very happy song. So I'm sure that at some point we're gonna bring it back.
Well, it's interesting that you say it's uplifting and heroic, because it is, but those men, especially like the Eastern Europeans and stuff, they were not treated, even at that time. I mean, we say, oh, they're overlooked and forgotten today, and they are less and less, but they still are to an extent when people talk about the Battle of Britain. But some of them were not treated especially well even at the time, you know?
No, obviously. And I guess that's why a lot of people also, you know, please, Sabaton, can you tell our story? Or can you tell their story? Because nobody else did.
To not be allowed in the victory parade and stuff, even after. Although there are some,
They were denied the triumph? Ah. Oh, man, that's angry. Oof. To not march in the triumph.
are some really good, like, little personal stories from them that a couple I mentioned in the World War II thing. Like, there was a Polish pilot, and he parachuted out, right, over Britain. And he landed in a British tennis club, right? And so they cleaned him up, put him in some new clothes, checked him in as a guest, and he played tennis, you know, and he won too. And I thought that was pretty good.
Okay.
And there was another story. A Polish guy, he parachuted out and he got stuck in a tree. And the locals came. This was way in the countryside with actual pitchforks. And they thought he was German because he obviously wasn't. And his thought, he said, so I said in the best British accent I could, fuck off. And they go, okay, he's not German and stuff. So there's a lot of those little stories like that.
Awesome.
So there are those stories of heroism. And of course, the bulk of the British people are well aware.
Hold on. How funny would it be, like, you know, you see the atypical mob with flames and pitchforks. It's like, hey, F off. It's like, oh, he's not the German. What that Polish guy did was he gave him the old Chef Ramsay F off.
Of the role that any of those Canadians, Czechs, Poles, all the others played in Britain. It's nice that it's getting more and more attention, particularly thanks to guys like you today.
There was a movie created about the 303rd not long ago.
Okay.
Oh, really?
And a pretty well produced movie.
Yeah.
And I was in contact with them and hoping that they would feature our song somehow.
Yeah.
But this shines a light. I mean, there are so many people often talking about, oh, Sabaton, your music is perfect for having soundtracks of movies. And we see that a lot of people use our music for YouTube videos where they like borrow the material from different movies and then they add our music and create their own videos. We love it. It's really cool, and I think it's a great thing when people do that. I told these movie makers, like, if you do not like agree that we do this together, like we produce something, and if we don't do it, fans will do it.
And good luck stopping the fans, because that ain't gonna. The fans will move Mount Olympus, lift it up, and huck it right at you, movie producers.
None of us will have the profit or benefit out of it. The problem with the movies is that there is always like this music producer.
Yeah.
And he has his vision. This is what the music's going to sound like in this movie. And then he suggests something for that person, and they are absolutely not interested in hearing. But I don't give up. So maybe one day they find our music in a movie.
And any of you producers out there, just remember, Per, who's written a lot of songs about things like
World
War II, World War I, war, more war, peace occasionally, international peacekeeping forces. See, I got that in, didn't I?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, well, to all you young producers and old producers out there, that is it for today for Sabaton History.
Thank you, and see you soon again.
Next week.
Thank you everybody for watching, and thank you everybody for supporting. And those who don't do it, click the bell, subscribe, and become a patron. Thank you very much.
Oh my God. I got to privately reach out to Sabaton History, see if I could reach. I got an idea for a song for them. Maybe. They probably got so many requests for it, but I'll keep it hush hush. But I have a suggestion. My brain still works. Yes, 2 functioning brain cells still at it. Woo! All right. Now that we got our learn on, let's get our fun on with Sabaton Aces in Exile. I am not going to pause the video. I will play it in its full entirety. I'm actually really excited for this. I'm actually going to message them. Say, hey, I got a big brain idea. I think they might like it. Maybe. Or not. In the skies above the isle, aces in exile prevail. From near and far, they arrive, join the force. Ready to serve the Allied command. and roll. Beautiful. 10 out of 10. Folks, listen, we here at Americans Learn encourage all of you to please, please, please support Sabaton, Sabaton History. They probably got this request so many times, but I'll ask. I will send a message. Maybe they'll say F you. Maybe they'll say, oh, we've heard this request before. Or maybe they'll say, hey, that's a big brain idea. We shall see. We shall see. However, folks, as a favor for me, also hit our like, comment, share, and subscribe button, as well as, by the way, if you had a relative fight in the Battle of Britain, and you know what? This even includes first responders, people there, because let's face it, not only was there a fight on above, there was a fight below. Because, yes, the German Third Reich was bombing, all of London and many other civilian locations, villages, towns, all of that. And there are many unsung heroes whose stories still go unheard of to this day. So this includes this request is for those who fought in the air and those who saved lives on the ground. Type their stories. Let them live and ride again. Let them live and ride again. All right. See you guys around. Be safe out there, folks. Drink water.